it going?
How are you?
Good.
Dude, look at how close, like...
Does it really do it right there? Oh my God.
That is better progress. That is more exciting. We're back out here in the garage and we've got a little bit of cleanup to do before we really start working on much. What we're gonna try and get done today though is finish getting the engine mounted in here. There's just a few bolts holding it in now. We want to get all the bolts in. We also plan to take a couple of little side ventures today. Gonna stop by Fred White's. I'm gonna put an electric fan on this, and he's had one that we've been talking about trying out and seeing if the size fits and all that. He's got a pretty cool little collection. Corvette, he's got a Harlequin Golf, and a couple of Mercedes wagons. One of them used to be mine. He's got it as just kind of a daily driver, and then he has a nice one too. And then after that, we're going to probably stop by Northern Tool. I've been kind of on this quest of wanting sort of a shop jacket. What I don't like about this one is that it has buttons, so when I'm leaning over the engine bay, I'm always worried about buttons scratching the paint. If there's anything that you like to put on when you're out in the shop that has a little bit of warmth, but is really there just to kind of cover and keep things from getting like super dirty underneath, let me know in the comments, because I'm trying to kind of figure out what the best thing is. I've got this cart that has a whole bunch of the old original fuel injection parts. I need to get the engine hoist and the engine stand put somewhere. I know where the hoist is going to go. I'm not quite sure where the stand is going to go yet. This is my little cart that I used when building the engine. Kind of gave me a good space to spread things out vertically, move it around, had a little bit of a workspace on top. There's a lot of things on here that aren't gonna go back on the car, but I still wanna keep. There's a lot of things on here that are kind of hard to find fuel injection parts for this car. So I might box those up. And then there's things that just need to get thrown out. One of the things I always struggle with is what to do with some of these things, like old valves, old lifters. I could just throw them out. I have a bin that I put scrap metal in. You know, there's something cool about these sorts of parts where I want to think of ways that I could reuse them, and I'm sure people have some pretty clever ideas. If you have any recommendations on what you would do with like old push rods, old valves, old lifters, old springs, let me know. I'm gonna set this box aside, but if anyone comes up with some clever ideas, I might come save this box and do something interesting with it. All right, we've got the cart pretty well cleared off, and then I made a separate container here that is all the fuel injection stuff that I'm not gonna use. If any of this is of use to you, let me know. And then over on the steps, I've got just non-fuel injection specific parts that are gonna go get stored upstairs. All right, we are in the car. We're on our way to go see Fred. I've known Fred for many years through Volkswagens, and just over a year ago, we went to the Overcrest Rally in Oregon together, us and the Lee Sachs and our friend Blair from Virginia. And ahead of the rally, I helped him quite a bit. I ran all new wiring in his Corvette, helped get the EFI set up on his Blueprint Engines crate motor that's running a Holley Sniper EFI setup. Fred had this electric radiator fan that he ended up not using on his Corvette, and we've been talking for over a year now about seeing if it'll fit on the Volvo. Super simple thing, just been putting it off. Hello, Fred.
How's it going?
How are you?
Good.
What you working on?
Cleaning up from yesterday. I did 4 shocks on the truck, and when I got to the 4th shock, I realized that the rear caliper on the truck was leaking. So I went from 4 shocks, which would have been like an hour, to going to find a caliper for it and then replacing all the brakes in the back. And it's more expensive, but it worked out fine.
You want to give us a little tour of what you got out here?
Sure. This is my 1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 TE. This one is called Old Money. I don't know. It's the I have 2 of these, and this is the clean one. I bought it stock, and it's nicer now. Very clean interior and all that. It's bagged on some AMG monoblocks that are off of Pablo. Pablo is my beater version. I have the exact same car outside, and it looks like a beater car because it is. And that's where these wheels came off of, and that car's the project for the week.
Where'd you get Pablo from?
I bought Pablo from Sean. I owned Pablo for like 10 months. I sold it to a local guy, and then every year, after like he owned it for like a year, every year he'd hit me up and be like, do you want to buy Pablo back? And I was like, what's wrong with it? And then every year the list got longer. And finally he's like, hey, it's going to Scrapyard if you don't come get it. And then we put 2 hours and $200 into it, and we got it running again. So it was a great beater for about a year, and now it's not such a great beater right now.
I'll put a link in the description because you've got a video on your channel of us fiddling with it.
Yeah, we got it running with like $250 in a couple hours. We got it running, and like it drove fine and all. I fixed a few things since then, but it has a fuel delivery issue right now. I need to look at. Up top, we've got the Harlequin. Had this since like 2013. Harlequin Golf. They made them in '96. 264 of them. This one's number 4, so it's like one of the pre-production ones they took to the car shows back in the day. So it's a pretty cool car. I've had that for a while. That's probably a lifer. And then this is for sure a lifer. This is my 64 Corvette. Sean actually helped me rebuild this car. It was basically just a body on a frame at one point, and I had the whole drivetrain out of it. All the wires have been replaced. Did all that stuff to it in 2023 to go to the Overcrest rally. And now I can literally drive this thing coast to coast if I want to, and it's reliable as hell. So this is a lifer. This was my dad's car. He got it when he was like 22, back in like 68. And so this car doesn't go anywhere. And then outside we just have the outdoor vehicles, the cars that don't get to come inside ever. It's the beater wagon, and then the truck, the F-250, which is the most reliable car in the bunch, but he never gets to see it in the inside of the garage, really. So I have a fan for you.
Well, I've got the radiator in the car. I'll bring it in here.
Yeah, go grab it. I'll clean out the spot for you.
All right, let's take this here and pop it on. Dude, look at how close, like.
Does it really do that right there? Oh my God. That fits really well.
So I just asked you off camera, is this your nice shirt or is this your shop shirt?
Shop shirt.
So I'm on a quest for shop attire, something that I can put on over whatever I'm wearing,
right,
that can get dirty,
right, and
it's not a big deal if it like ends up with a stain. Would you classify this shirt in that category? If it got stained, would you be bummed?
No, I mean this is, I think this is literally older than me. Yesterday when I was doing all the stuff out here, I had to like nose the truck in, and it was still cold as hell yesterday. So I had my Carhartt jumpsuit. It's like for cold weather.
Yeah.
And I'll do that for snow stuff. But I wore that, and that was really nice because I didn't care what got on my legs.
I want something that I can almost even just keep in the garage, and like whatever I'm putting on, boom, just throw it over.
It's like a fireman's suit.
Sort of, like just ready to go. I also have a heated hoodie
That's
on.
fancy stuff over there. I don't have one of those.
And I want something that I can put on over it so I'm not having to wash the heated hoodie all the time.
There you go.
I'm actually planning to go to Northern Tool after this to go look at what they have. So,
okay.
So I hadn't really thought about like just a button-down flannel to put on top.
It works. It really does, and it just goes over the hoodie, and this like stays nice and like I can move around a lot.
Yeah.
I use it and put it on a full jacket or a coat.
Yeah.
And I don't have that many full jackets or coats. I just don't care about. But yeah, if you find one of those full jumpsuits at Northern Tool, you gotta let me know.
Oh man, I do think I am going to take this.
Deal. Yeah.
So I'll get you paid here, and
No, you take it. It's yours.
Okay. We'll be right back.
Sean helped me so much with the car, whether it was wiring, helping getting the engine going, all that stuff. in 2023 before we went to the rally that it's like it'd be kind of a dick move to make him pay for this. You did enough helping me with the car. You can take the fan, you can take the relay. If this would help you at all, you can take any of that. It's yours, no charge. It's just, you're a good friend and you helped me with the car. This is the least I could do. So there you go.
I appreciate it.
No worries.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. Thanks.
Oh yeah, dude.
All right, we'll get this loaded up and on to our next journey here. All right, so we're on our way back home. I did stop by Northern Tool, looked around. I didn't see anything that I was pleased enough to buy, but it did give me some good ideas. We are back in the garage. I might see if I can just find like an insulated flannel zip up, but that has a covered zipper. I am just starting to think that that's going to be the right thing. I installed the radiator and took the fan and was met with some disappointment. There's not nearly as much room between the radiator and the fan as I thought, and it hits the water pump pulley. Well, I can try and find a lower profile fan, something that doesn't have as big of a motor, but my other thoughts is I can mount it on the front of the radiator. The downside to mounting it on the front is that you are actually blocking part of the radiator with this motor. A lot of times when you're driving just at highway speeds, you have enough airflow going through the radiator that this fan won't even be on. But with this in front, that's blocking part of the radiator, so you have reduced efficiency there. There are fans that are designed to be one or the other. This is designed to be a polar fan. Now I can wire it backwards and it will act like a pusher fan. Just the fan blades themselves don't have the right kind of curve or profile to work as a pusher fan, at least just not as efficiently. The nice thing too is if the fan was mounted in front of the radiator, it'd leave the engine bay looking really clean. I have the fan. I'm gonna mount it in front of the radiator as a pusher fan and at least give it a shot. Let's get back to getting all the engine mounting bolts installed, which is gonna start with me sweeping underneath the car and crawling under there and putting all the transmission bolts in. Time to go under, start bolting things up. I was recording and it just kept stopping for some reason. So missed the part where I was putting the last bolts in underneath. So all the bolts are in place except for the starter bolts. Those are also 2 long bolts that sandwich the starter, the engine, and the transmission all together. I'm gonna work on putting those in now. Then I'll do one last double check of everything to make sure I've tightened it. Somehow I keep losing whole segments of recording. It's getting very annoying. So I lost some of installing these bolts, but we're just going back and tightening everything down now. Forgot to put some of these, there's kind of some thick washers that go behind these nuts. So just put those on now. I'm getting ready to put these heater hoses back on, and I thought there was maybe some good things to point out with hose clamps. But the problem with this style where they have these slits, those slits are basically what the screw grabs to tighten, is they end up leaving these indentations. They dig in pretty deep, they tend to be pretty narrow. These are probably the most common ones that you see. They usually work okay. I don't stress if you have these. You often see them in the store in some sort of assortment like this. You don't have to get just those. If you're doing fuel lines, especially fuel injection lines, you'll often seek out something like this. There's no slits, it's not a screw style. You simply just tighten down this bolt, that clamps everything together. There's also spring clamps These are pretty common in some OE applications. These are pretty well for holding on, you know, things that don't have a tremendous amount of pressure. Maybe like PCV hoses that don't see boost. They're quick, but they do stink if you're trying to grab them with pliers and they unload, hit a finger or something. They're kind of a pain to use. I feel like most people complain about these, installing and uninstalling them. These ones seem very cheap to me. I thought they looked kind of cool, but they don't work that well. It's basically like a wire clamp, kind of the same idea as those fuel line ones, but you just don't get a whole lot of grab out of them. These tend to be my favorite though. They're a stainless steel clamp. They're ridged, they're a screw style, but it's not these open slits. They're kind of more of these divots, and they're nice and wide. They also have a little bit of a flared edge. They just don't seem to cut into the hose as much, but they still do a really good job of holding it down. They look nice. They're a nice stainless steel. You can go on Amazon and look until you're dead to find some assortment of hoses. I'll put a link in the description for these ones. I've gotten a lot of use out of these. I like these. So I'm over here putting the header on the old engine, trying to look at the clearance of the oil pressure sending unit. It has this kind of elbow adapter. I was hoping I could go without it, but without it, these terminals are almost touching right there. So I'm gonna have to put it on there, still use it. That's not too bad right there. There's enough room. The wires will run along here. Enough room around the oil filter. I think that'll be a good placement for it. I cleaned these fittings off. Got the old goop off of them. I'm gonna put this angle adapter in with a little bit of thread sealant. The challenge with this sort of setup is there's a certain spot where it'll get tight, but that angle is also very important. So that's where this thread sealant is also kind of extra important, because I probably could tighten the adapter a little bit more, but then it's not going to be pointing the angle that I want. Now, obviously, the sending unit angle isn't as important. So we're just going to tighten that till it's snug. I think that's going to do it. The engine's all secured. Got the oil pressure sending unit installed. Got the heater core and the hoses to it installed. I'm a little bummed about the radiator, but we'll get the fan mounted in there. We'll mount it as a pusher and just see how it goes. Had a lot of issues, just like technical video issues this weekend. So that's kind of been a bummer. I feel like I missed a good chunk of stuff. I'm back out here. It's a new day. I'm gonna continue working on the Volvo. I did spend some time last night thinking through our radiator fan situation. The fan that I got from Fred, very nice, and it was very generous of him. Really bummed that it didn't fit. Was debating and talking with some other Volvo guys. Do I move the radiator forward and then start modifying this upper cowl piece? Then the heights and stuff end up not being quite right. And kind of came down to the point of no matter what I'm doing, there's some sort of compromise. But either I'm gonna put a fan up front, which is gonna hurt my cruising cooling capacity, but be better maybe at, you know, slow speeds or when I'm at stops, or put a fan behind, which is gonna leave the radiator wide open for cruising, which is most of the heavy heat producing times. But it may not move enough air when I'm cooling. Either way, I know the fan that I have from Fred, designed to be a polar fan, could mount it on front, but the fan's not gonna work as efficiently and it's gonna block that airflow during cruising speeds. So I ended up ordering a fan, a low profile one. I still have Fred's, might just be a little trial and error, so we'll see. That's not that exciting. What is exciting is hopefully working some more on the engine today. I'm actually going to start with putting spark plugs in. I've got these NGK spark plugs. They're a resistor type spark plug, which should be better to cut down on electronic interference. I think that'll be a good move. That's what I had on the old engine that was running the Link ECU EFI. So I'm going to continue that with the new one. I did go one heat range colder, which can be beneficial for higher performance engines. I can always pull the other spark plugs out from the old engine and throw them in the new one, but I'm going to start with these and see how they do. It's always good to check spark plug gap. You can get these pretty inexpensive tools. They just have kind of a ramped lip around the edge, and that thickness of that ramp corresponds to specific distance that's measured on here. So you can stick the spark plug in on one end and just kind of rotate it until you feel resistance. You don't want to use the ramp part to increase or decrease the gap. That's what this little circle piece is for. The manual calls for 28 thousandths to 32 thousandths. So I'm going to aim for just right in the middle at 30 thousandths. And when I put this spark plug in, it looks like we're coming up to 20, looks like maybe 27 thousandths is what it's hitting right now. And so we'll kind of hook our tool in like here, and just the smallest little adjustments can go a pretty long way. So now we'll slide it on here and check it again. It's at about 29, just about 30 thousandths right there. I'm gonna try and go just a tiny bit more. Again, a little goes a long way. These can get just kind of bumped in shipping and get compressed smaller. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's the first one down. I'm gonna do the other three. So I came across one where the gap's actually too big. So there's a couple ways that you can deal with these. Probably one of the easiest is just to come up to like a bench or a wooden surface and just give it a few taps to kind of push it back down. 33 thousandths. Still on the high end of the range. There we go. So you're literally just on a soft surface, just tapping it like that. Hammer that strap back up in place. And yeah, it's a pretty good measurement right there. It's always good to start these off hand tightening just to make sure you're not cross-threading anything. So on the box, it gives you a list of torque specs. We're aiming for 18 to 25 foot-pounds. Next up for me is this ignition coil bracket. I designed this, and with the help of my friend Justin LaFoon, he runs EV Solutions. He's got a whole bunch of really nice fabricating equipment. He was able to cut this out on his water jet and then bend it up in his bending brake, tacked some nuts on the back. Turned out super nice. It's made out of stainless steel. Finished look, but still raw, not polished, not too blingy. So this slips right over the valve cover studs and gets held in place by these valve cover bolts. The torque spec for these valve cover bolts is 8 to 10 foot-pounds, which is 120 inch-pounds. I don't like doing such low torque ratings on the 1/2 inch torque wrench, just because that's kind of the low end of the range. So I have this inch-pound wrench. It's a nice size. I think it's a little bit nicer build also, probably more accurate. I'm not going all the way to spec first. I just kind of want to snug things down. And it's going to take a few passes, because as you snug one down, it's going to take some pressure off the others. You can see as I come by again, it'll move before it clicks. And that's because tightening one takes pressure off the others. And you just keep going until you can hit them all without really moving them. You are compressing the cork gasket, so that's where some of it's going. I think that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to install our distributor adapter to run this crank angle sensor. There's a few things that have to all line up and jive just right though. The Bosch style distributor, you can see, has these two kind of drive pins, and they're actually offset. So you can't really install this incorrectly. But the Mitsubishi crank angle sensor that mounts on top does not have an offset. So it can get installed incorrectly, but it does have an orienting dot that you can use to kind of help figure out the right way. Just to try and make things simple, and I should have done this before I put the spark plugs in, just so I'm not fighting compression. I'm gonna rotate the engine to top dead center so I can make sure this drops in how it should, and then I'll figure out the right orientation for the sensor. You can see the receiving end of this down in here. It's hard for me to show, but here's a picture of what it should look like when you're looking straight down. So I at least have the right orientation of this. I don't know what that position is on the Eclipse. This is the inside. This is a replacement disc, also from Yoshi Fab, who makes this adapter. So this gives you many more kind of windows, gives you a higher resolution signal. These outer ones would be similar to like a crank angle wheel that you'd have on the end of your crankshaft. That's what the ECU uses to determine RPM. And then this slot is what it uses to determine cylinder one top dead center. This is the sensor that picks it up. So we know as this rotates, when it's underneath here, it is reading cylinder one. Once it's in, I'm gonna have to tweak it a little bit just to get the timing correct, but at least I know I'm not 180 degrees out now. So I've got the cap back on here. Something I just noticed, when the dot and the dash are pointing to this giant dot, then the sensor is at top dead center. That's going to be super helpful to know. So if you're using one of these Mitsubishi Eclipse crank and cam angle sensors for your aftermarket EFI setup, I'm using a Link ECU. That's how you can remember the position for top dead center, cylinder one, without taking the cap off. Before it gets too crowded, so we're out of the ground for the fuel injection hooked up. And then the next thing is just getting these ignition coils on. These just push on. Just Try and get them pushed down as far as you can. And I have some bolts to hold them in place. And we plug them in. I think just to finish up this side, I'm going to hook up the starter way down there. All right, it's time to work on this side. The first thing I'm going to do is wire up the gauge. It's this guy down here. There's two labels on it. One is WK, which is for the warning light, and the other one is G, which is for the gauge. There we go. Before I forget, I'm gonna throw this gasket on here for the header and the intake manifold. Coming in with the header here. Try to tape off the areas that I think will get the most clunked around here. Coming in with the intake manifolds, but one of the things I wanted to do is you can see on the bottom there's, you know, kind of these nubs from different castings. Here it's ground down. That's how it came. But there's these inside ones that are not, and it makes it really hard to get to the nut there. So I'm gonna grind those down as well real quick. Don't judge my workbench here, but just trying to keep aluminum contained. If I can get it to go straight in the trash can, awesome. Got that smoothed out. Not quite as pretty as Ben does it. These intake manifolds are replica R Sport manifolds. Ben from Tinus Tuning, he's in the Netherlands, he makes these. I've got his intake manifold and his Tinus Tuning camshaft in here. I think it's a TT8 if I remember right. He said it's probably the most aggressive camshaft that he would run on the street. He says that it's pretty smooth, but it is pretty performance oriented. Let's see if we can get this on here. This actually is a lot easier to get on than with the stock manifold. That is better progress. That is more exciting. It's all just loosely fit. All the nuts are on there. I kind of want to make sure that the header is landing in the right spot underneath the car. I mean, there's not a whole lot that I can do, but there is a little bracket that it's supposed to clamp into off of the transmission, essentially. That kind of want to make sure that's lined up before I really snug everything down. But we've got the header on there, we've got the ITBs, we've got the ignition coils back on there, the crank and cam angle sensor, the starter's hooked up. That's starting to look pretty exciting, I would say. What started off as a bit of a rough weekend, I think is turning out pretty good. I still have a little box of parts down here that need to go on, the alternators in a box, the air horns, some of the air filter stuff. That'll go on probably next week, but this feels really good. I'm really excited about this. The radiator fan will come in a few days. That'll go on, and then I'll hook up the hoses and all of that. The fuel pressure regulator needs to get put on, and then the next big thing really is exhaust. So I've got to adapt this header to the rest of the exhaust, and I do have a plan for that. I've got the parts. We're gonna weld a little adapter onto the stock exhaust pipe after we cut it and shorten it. I think it's gonna turn out pretty well. We'll have to weld the O2 bung in there also for the O2 sensor. But that's pretty exciting. It's been a lot of work, so feels good to get to this point. I think next week might be the last week of the engine. That's not going to include the start though. We're going to wait to try and do the first start when it's warmer out, because I don't want to have to deal with cold start and the tune and the timing. I need to break in the new cam. I need to make sure that the piston rings seat. There's kind of a few critical things that when I start it, it needs to be able to run well on first start. We're going to wait. Going to be a bit of a tease, but that's not going to be the end of Volvo work. Going to go through and do all of the suspension bushings. I want to get the drive shaft out and make sure that it is balanced, but I'm hoping next time I drive this, it's going to have a new engine, more power, all the suspension is going to be gone through. It should feel like a pretty different car. That's going to be it for this week. There's still more stuff to come. Hope you like what I'm doing. Please subscribe. Like, really, please subscribe. I appreciate you spending the time watching. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. We'll see you next time.